Morbid Facts, Part 166. Despite growing up deaf and blind, Helen Keller was a supporter of eugenics. She believed that infants who were born with severe mental or physical disabilities were better off dying. Tobacco companies spend the most money on advertising during the month of January. This is because January is when most people are trying to quit as New Year's resolutions. This is a photo of an Iraqi officer with a fearless expression on his face just moments before being beheaded by an ISIS militant. Male otters have been known to violently rape female otters, baby seals, and other sea creatures. Sadly, this often results in death for the victims, since the male otter will sometimes bite and drown them to get his way. Morbid Facts, Part 167. Mike Tyson got into his first fight after a bully ripped the head off of one of his pigeons. He said that the pigeon was the first thing that he ever loved and inspired him to become a fighter. There are more Panda Express locations in the world than actual pandas. When people die from Alzheimer's, it's usually because the disease got so bad that they forgot how to swallow or breathe. There's a blue whale who sings at such a high frequency that he's unable to communicate with other whales. Nicknamed 52 Blue, his calls have been heard every year since the 1980s but never receive a response. He's been called the world's loneliest whale. Morbid Facts, Part 169. After being convicted for the murder of Deborah Reese in 1993, Liddell Lee maintained his innocence for 24 years. Before his execution in 2017, his last words were, "I am an innocent man." Just a few days ago, a different man's DNA was found on the murder weapon. Female ducks are raped so frequently that many species have developed a second decoy vagina through evolution. They can offer it to intruders that they don't want to be impregnated by. Only 1 out of every 1,000 sea turtles born actually make it to adulthood. Fatal familial insomnia is a rare incurable brain disease that progressively destroys your brain's ability to sleep. Eventually, you stop sleeping altogether, go completely insane, suffer from seizures, and die from cardiac arrest. Morbid Facts, Part 171. In 2003, a woman from Texas hit a homeless man with her car and his body became lodged in her windshield. She drove home with him still stuck in the car and repeatedly apologized to the man when he was in her garage. But she never called for help, and the man died 2 days later as the woman received 50 years in prison. Dodo birds were very friendly and curious animals since they had no natural predators. And then we came along and killed them all. For animal testing involving dogs, most laboratories use beagles because they're the most forgiving of humans inflicting pain on them. In the 1920s, the federal government poisoned alcohol in an effort to curb consumption during Prohibition. As a result, more than 10,000 Americans died from poisoning by their own government. Morbid Facts, Part 172. After Vincent van Gogh shot himself in the chest with a revolver, he managed to walk home and see 2 doctors. But since neither of them was a surgeon, they couldn't remove the bullet, and they left him alone in his room smoking a pipe. He died the next morning with his brother by his side, who said Vincent's last words were, "The sadness will last forever." A girl who grew up in Auschwitz drew this picture of home while living in a residence for disturbed children. When Elvia Cortez went to feed her cows one morning, 4 men quickly approached her and put a bomb around her neck. They left a tape asking for $7,500 and threatened to set off the bomb if she tried to disarm it. Elvia called the police and a bomb tech showed up later in the day to remove it. A few hours later, the bomb suddenly went off and killed both of them, and the men responsible were never found. Morbid Facts, Part 173. Lama Itigilov was a Buddhist said to have reached nirvana, the final goal of Buddhism. This is due to the lifelike state of his corpse, which is not subject to macroscopic decay even though he was never embalmed. He died in 1927, and upon the latest examination in 2005, scientists stated his body was in the condition of someone who had died just 36 hours ago. In 2009, an Indian doctor removed 172,000 kidney stones from a single kidney. Both the patient and surgeon now hold Guinness World Records that will hopefully never be broken. In 1961, Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov was working in Antarctica when he realized he had appendicitis. He knew he would die if his appendix wasn't removed, but he was the only doctor on the expedition. so he ended up performing the surgery on himself and miraculously recovered. Morbid Facts, Part 173. Within the walls of Alcatraz, Al Capone's brain completely melted due to untreated neurosyphilis. It got to the point where he would throw his feces at the other inmates and was paroled early because he was deemed too much of a lost cause to be a threat. When he died at the age of 48, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. While Charles Darwin is famous for his work on evolution, he also killed and tasted every species of animal that he discovered. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. Morbid Facts, Part 174. When Pablo Picasso died in 1973, his wife wouldn't allow their grandson Pablito attend the funeral. Little Pablito responded by drinking a bottle of bleach, which damaged his organs so badly that he couldn't eat anymore. After 3 months of suffering, he died. Lake Nyos in Cameroon periodically releases a cloud of invisible carbon dioxide that suffocates everything within a 16-mile radius. In 1986, 1,700 people and all of their livestock suddenly died without even understanding what was happening to them. In 1949, Timothy Evans was wrongly executed for murdering his wife and daughter. The actual murderer, John Christie, was a prosecution witness at Evans's trial. After Evans was executed, Christie went on to kill 4 more people. The government didn't acknowledge that Evans was innocent until 2004. Morbid Facts, Part 175. Described by the media as the world's worst serial killer, Luis Garavito is responsible for the rape and murder of over 100 young boys. After a total of only 22 years served, he will be released from Colombian prison this year. After teenager Amy Billig disappeared in 1974, her mother began receiving phone calls from a man claiming Amy was serving as his slave. The chilling calls continued for more than 20 years, but the case was never solved. In 1933, a doctor named Carl Tanzler raided the grave of a female patient with whom he'd become obsessed before she died. He stole her body from the tomb and lived with her corpse for 7 years. As her body fell apart, he attached the bones together using coat hangers and fitted her face with glass eyes. He was only caught when someone saw him dancing with the corpse in front of an open window. Morbid Facts, Part 176. The owner of Ray's Sausages spent nearly $30,000 to combat the foul smell said to be coming from his shop. It was later discovered that the odors were actually coming from the rotting victims of his neighbor, serial killer Anthony Sowell. Replacement teeth were once made from the teeth of dead soldiers after they were scavenged from the battlefield. This is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald sitting at the bottom of Lake Superior. The 700-foot freighter sank in 1975, taking the lives of all 29 men on board. The bodies were never recovered and are said to be well preserved even today due to the cold waters. Since 1946, the Russians believed they had a piece of Hitler's skull, serving as evidence that he died. But in the year 2000, it was discovered that the skull fragment had actually belonged to a middle-aged woman. Morbid Facts, Part 177. In 2016, an Indonesian pop star died on stage after she was bitten by the king cobra she was dancing with. She kept performing for 45 minutes before succumbing to the snake's venom. A German shepherd named Tolero stayed next to the body of his owner for 23 days after he had died in a snowstorm. He prevented animals from attacking the body and tried to keep his owner warm by sleeping by his side. In 1937, a gas leak in the basement of a school in Texas caused a massive explosion that killed 300 children. It was the deadliest school disaster in U.S. history and was so tragic that even Adolf Hitler sent his condolences. Morbid Facts, Part 178. This photo was taken by a paramedic in 2015 outside of a hospital in California. It shows an ER doctor who stepped outside to cry for a moment after losing a 19-year-old patient. Minutes later, he walked back in the building with his head held high and continued on to his next patient. In the 1940s, Mike the Chicken lived for 18 months after his head was axed off. He only died after choking on a kernel of corn. In 2010, Mexican singer Sergio Vega publicly denied a news report that he had been murdered. Hours later, he was murdered. A Massachusetts man named Kenny Waters was wrongly imprisoned for 18 years for murder. He was finally freed in 2001 after his high school dropout sister went to law school to prove his innocence. Just 6 months after he was released, he died in a freak accident. Morbid Facts, Part 179. In 2012, a British man went into a coma after getting in a bad car accident. When he woke up, he could speak fluent French and genuinely believed that he was Matthew McConaughey. Veterinarians take their own lives at 3 times the rate of the average person. This is partly due to online trolling and threats from pet owners who blame them for the death of a pet. Another reason is that vets can often tell when animals have been abused by their owners, but there's very little that they can do about it. Due to the skin's elasticity, it takes 3 full rotations to remove the human head. In 1847, a doctor performed an amputation so fast that he accidentally amputated his assistant's fingers as well. Both the patient and assistant eventually died from sepsis, while a spectator apparently died from shock. This resulted in the only known procedure with a 300% mortality rate. Morbid Facts, Part 180. Martin Luther King Jr. was tragically assassinated when he was just 39 years old. However, an autopsy revealed that he had the heart of a 60-year-old, likely due to stress. This is a photo of 2 elephants embracing one last time before being separated for a lifetime of serving man. A deaf man was stabbed and killed in North Carolina just for communicating. He was simply signing to his friend when a local gang member mistook the conversation for gang signs. BBC regularly rehearses the Queen's death to ensure that their cover of it is flawless when she actually does die. 4 people were killed during a Rolling Stones concert in 1969, but the overall population of the concert didn't change. This was because 4 babies were born during the concert as well. Morbid Facts, Part 181. This photo was taken of a group of people who crashed into the Andes in 1972. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive for nearly 3 months. They're all smiling in the photo, but it becomes quite disturbing when you realize there's a human spine on the ground next to them. When actor-comedian Red Fox was dying of a heart attack while on set, nobody offered to help him. This was because everyone thought it was nothing more than the fake heart attack act he was famous for. When James Bulger went missing in 1993, police became optimistic when they found out he was last seen with children. Sadly, this was a false hope since the 2 boys who kidnapped James went on to torture him for hours before leaving him for dead on some train tracks. His body was found so horribly mutilated that coroners couldn't even determine how he died. Morbid Facts, Part 182. When she was 16 years old, Annalise Michaels started eating her own hands and drinking her own urine while suffering from seizures and delusions. But her devout Christian family denied medical reasoning and instead blamed the devil. She underwent 67 exorcisms and weighed less than 70 pounds at the time of her negligent death. If you're close enough to a nuclear blast, you'll die with no pain because the explosion will kill you faster than your brain can detect pain. This eerie 1986 Twin Towers advertisement speaks for itself. In 1989, a Los Angeles woman received a phone call from her brother-in-law saying that her ex-husband was on his way to kill her. She dialed 911 but was told nothing could be done unless he showed up at her house. Within 15 minutes, he arrived, killing her and 4 other women who were celebrating her 27th birthday. Morbid Facts, Part 183. When a woman with breast implants is cremated, the implants will melt into a goo. It then drips to the bottom of the furnace and must be cleaned up once it is cooled. A South African politician used to love his Mercedes so much that his last wish was to be buried while sitting in it. A man was once so angry about losing a knife fight in CSGO that he spent 6 months tracking down his opponent and stabbed him in real life. If you had smallpox scars in the 18th century, you were more likely to get hired. The scars prove that you already had smallpox and couldn't pass it on to your employers. The symptoms of schizophrenia are shaped by culture. Americans with schizophrenia tend to be more paranoid and experience harsher voices and hallucinations. In India and Africa, schizophrenic people tend to hear voices that are more playful and positive. Morbid Facts, Part 184. This is a World War II photo of a Japanese boy waiting for his turn to cremate his dead baby brother in Nagasaki. Photographer Joe O'Donnell said the boy was biting his lips so hard to avoid crying that it was bleeding. If your lungs were completely opened up and laid flat, they would cover the entire size of a tennis court. When the mummy of Ramses II was transported in 1974, it was issued an Egyptian passport that listed his occupation as deceased king. This 1955 device allowed the user to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes at once. Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect emotional memory as strongly as informational memory. As a result, Alzheimer's patients who are told bad news will often forget the news but will remain sad and have no idea why. Morbid Facts, Part 185. The singer of Peanut Butter Jelly Time died after an 11-hour standoff with police in 2002. During the ordeal, his brother-in-law Snoop Dogg attempted to calm him down and convince him to surrender. Your intestines know how to get back in the right place. When performing abdominal surgery and the intestines need to be moved, the doctor will simply stuff them back in. There's a condition called Ondine's curse which causes sufferers to die if they fall asleep. The only treatment is for patients to wear a ventilator every time they sleep. In 2001, a man donated his kidney to his wife who was suffering from renal failure. 8 years later, when his wife filed for divorce, he demanded her to return the kidney or pay over $1 million. Morbid Facts, Part 186. In 2006, the Miami Hurricanes football team gathered in prayer for their teammate Brian Pata, who had been shot and killed. 15 years later, his teammate Rashawn Jones has been charged with his murder. This is why you should never smash someone's face into a birthday cake without knowing what's inside of it. A Florida lifeguard was fired for saving someone who was drowning because he went outside of his designated area. The executioner from the infamous Vietnam War photo opened a pizza joint in Virginia after the war. When elephants lose a mate, they sometimes refuse to eat and will lie down and shed tears until they starve to death. They're the only animals known to die as a result of heartbreak. Morbid Facts, Part 187. Arnold Schwarzenegger has said in many interviews that O.J. Simpson was originally casted to play the Terminator. The main reason he wasn't is that James Cameron didn't think O.J. would be believable as a killer. This is a rare photograph of Ted Bundy having fun with kids in his neighborhood. It serves as a stark reminder of how easily a monstrous person can blend in with society. You can bite off your own finger as easily as you can bite off a carrot, but your brain prevents it. In 2002, a Chechen terrorist attack in a Moscow theater left 130 people dead, but only one of them was killed by terrorists. The other 129 were killed by Russian special forces trying to rescue them. Morbid Facts, Part 188. Arizona man Balbir Singh Sadi was a Sikh who became the victim of a hate crime. He was killed 4 days after 9/11 when a Boeing employee wanted to retaliate for the attacks on the World Trade Center. Sadi is listed on the Arizona State Memorial as a victim of 9/11. If you could harvest every organ and chemical in the human body, you would make around $45 million. This is a 1999 photo of Tom Klebold helping his son Dylan get ready for the Columbine prom. Little did he know, his son would help kill 13 people in the school just 3 days later. In 2015, sex worker Heather Saul shot and killed a man after grabbing his gun while he was trying to rape her. When police arrived to investigate, they found a massive kill kit in the dead man's car. They would later credit Heather with stopping an active serial killer. Morbid Facts, Part 189. After Elvis died on the toilet at the age of 42, his doctor said the cause of death was an embarrassing case of chronic constipation. His stool was so backed up from drugs that he hadn't taken a dump in at least 4 months. If you're a man and you pee on a pregnancy test and it's positive, you most likely have testicular cancer. This is a photo of all the cars that never left the Giants Stadium commuter lot after 9/11. A team of firefighters from Wiltshire, England saved a group of piglets from a barn fire. 6 months later, the farmer sent them sausages made from the piglets as a thank you gift. Last year, Dutch police uncovered a soundproof torture chamber inside of a shipping crate in a warehouse. They found a dentist chair equipped with wrist and ankle straps as well as several medical tools and cameras. It's unclear how many victims were tortured in the room. Morbid Facts, Part 190. The well-endowed man behind this legendary image is none other than Wardy Joubert III. He was a football coach and preacher who sadly died in 2016 from a heart attack at the age of 45. When a photojournalist took this picture of a little girl in Syria, she raised her arms in surrender because she thought the camera was a gun. In 2011, a Pakistani woman was sentenced to life in prison for killing and cooking her husband because he wanted a physical relationship with their daughter. Ignaz Semmelweis was the doctor who discovered that washing your hands prevents the spread of many diseases. But since this went against the popular medical opinion of his time, he was committed to a mental asylum where he was beaten so badly that he died of gangrene from the wounds. Morbid Facts, Part 191. Just 2 years after filming Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick killed 2 women while driving on the wrong side of the road in Ireland. He said he had no recollection of the incident and got off with a $175 fine. A male gorilla named Michael learned sign language and once used it to describe his mother being shot and killed by poachers. 2 years ago, a distress message was found in a can of sardines saying, "We are Sudanese laborers enslaved by this company." An investigation was opened by Egyptian authorities, but nothing ever came of it. Genghis Khan would marry off one of his daughters to the king of an allied nation and then assign his new son-in-law to military duty. As Khan expected, most of these son-in-laws would die in combat, giving his daughters complete control over these nations. Morbid Facts, Part 192. While Keanu Reeves was filming The Matrix, his daughter was stillborn at 8 months. The tragedy caused he and his girlfriend to break up shortly before she was killed in a car crash. Since then, he has donated most of his earnings from movies and has avoided serious relationships and having kids. In the 1500s, Mapuche warrior Galvarino had both his hands cut off as punishment for defying the Spanish. He returned home, raised an army, and fought the Spanish with blades tied to the stubs of his hands. Khalif Browder was imprisoned at Rikers Island for 3 years without a trial after allegedly stealing a backpack. He spent 730 days alone in solitary confinement whilst awaiting his trial. He was finally released in 2013 after his innocence was proven, but he took his own life just 2 years later. Morbid Facts, Part 193. In 2011, a 17-year-old Chinese boy sold his kidney on the black market so that he could buy the new iPhone and iPad. 8 years later, the man's other kidney failed and now he's bedridden for life. The men in white are the surviving members of the original San Francisco Gay Men's Choir. The rest represent those who were lost to AIDS. American Airlines assured a blind woman that they would help her off the plane after the other passengers had gotten off. They then proceeded to forget about her and locked the plane while she was still inside. In 2013, a Clemson student ran an experiment to help turtles safely cross roads. So he placed a fake turtle in the road to observe driver behavior and accidentally discovered something disturbing. He found that 6% of people deliberately went out of their way to hit the turtle. Morbid Facts, Part 196. In the 1960s, Michael Jackson's father Joseph wanted to teach his kids a lesson about leaving the windows open at night. So one night when little Michael was asleep, his father climbed through his window wearing a mask and screamed at him. From that point on, Michael would have recurring nightmares about being kidnapped from his bedroom. According to a survey, more than half of all commercial pilots have fallen asleep during a flight. 29% of these pilots claim they've woken up before and seen the co-pilot asleep as well. In 2010, a Polish man wanted doctors to remove a years-long cyst on the back of his head. Upon further examination, doctors found that the cyst was actually a .22 caliber bullet lodged in his scalp. He hadn't noticed it because he was drunk at the party where he was likely shot 5 years earlier. Morbid Facts, Part 197. In 2001, the FBI warned Russell Crowe that Al-Qaeda was planning to kidnap him as part of a cultural destabilization plot. For 2 years, the FBI publicly guarded Crowe and refused to give him any details on the threat. Medical mistakes kill over 250,000 Americans each year. If they were a disease, they'd be the third leading cause of death in the U.S. behind cancer and heart disease. Jim Creighton was the first baseball superstar according to historians. In 1862, he swung so hard into a home run that he ruptured his bladder and died. Titanic designer Thomas Andrews was on board the ship when it sank. His original design included more safety features such as watertight compartments and twice as many lifeboats. But his ideas were rejected since they'd make the boat appear less attractive. He spent his last moments trying to evacuate passengers and his body was never recovered. Morbid Facts, Part 198. A former FBI agent has claimed that Tupac's boss Suge Knight financed the murder of Biggie in 1997. The intended target was actually Biggie's boss Sean P. Diddy Combs, who was in the car in front of Biggie at the time. In 2015, Airbnb held a contest where the winner got to spend the night in the Paris catacombs, which hold the remains of 6 million people. In 1915, the U.S. Postal Service banned the mailing of people after a 4-year-old girl was sent across the state of Idaho by her parents. A man whose headaches were so painful they made him vomit has finally found the source of his problem. A tapeworm has been lodged in his brain for 10 years after eating undercooked pork in Mexico. Morbid Facts, Part 199. Through her grandmother Mary, Queen Elizabeth is a direct descendant of Vlad the Impaler. This technically makes Prince Charles the heir to Dracula's bloodline. The urine of a diabetic contains so much sugar that it can be purified and made into a high-end single malt whiskey. Rabies is such a deadly disease that you're more likely to survive being shot in the head. Only 14 people in recorded medical history have ever survived rabies, and all of them suffered permanent brain damage. There are tiny bugs closely related to spiders living in the pores of your face, which crawl onto your face to mate while you're sleeping. In 2006, a team of scientists in Iceland were freezing clams to study the effects of climate change. They ended up accidentally killing the oldest known animal in the world, a 507-year-old ocean quahog clam named Ming. Morbid Facts, Part 200. When North Korea was battling food shortages last year, Kim Jong-un ordered his citizens to give up their dogs. Authorities went door to door, forcefully confiscating all canines, which were then sold to meat markets to be eaten. This is the world's heaviest woman in 1922 as compared to the world's heaviest person today. A Japanese ice rink once put 5,000 dead fish in their ice so that their customers could skate over a frozen ocean. The attraction was closed immediately after public outrage. An Iranian woman underwent 50 surgeries and dropped to 90 pounds in a catastrophic attempt to look like Angelina Jolie. While filming The Wizard of Oz, 16-year-old Judy Garland was put on quite the extreme diet. It consisted of chicken soup, coffee, and roughly 80 cigarettes per day. Oh, and check out my Insta, it's active again. Morbid Facts, Part 201. Baby Molly Gibson was born in October of 2020, but she was technically 27 years old at her birth, just 2 years younger than her mom. Her embryo was donated in 1992 and stored in a liquid nitrogen tank until she was adopted in 2020 for in vitro fertilization. In 1994, a Russian pilot allowed his 16-year-old son to sit at the controls of the plane. But his son accidentally disabled the autopilot, crashing the plane and killing all 75 passengers on board. From the time of its discovery to its demotion, Pluto didn't even make one full revolution around the sun. If you hit someone with your car in China, you must pay for their medical care for the rest of their life. But if you kill someone with your car, you only have to pay a one-time fee. For this reason, it's common for people to go back and kill someone they accidentally hit. Morbid Facts, Part 202. In a 1974 art performance, Marina Abramovich told visitors she wouldn't move for 6 hours no matter what they did to her. She placed 72 items on a table and invited people to use them on her however they pleased with no punishment. There were objects for pleasure including a rose, perfume, and wine, as well as objects for pain including scissors, a whip, and a loaded gun. Visitors were gentle to begin with, but gradually got more aggressive as they became comfortable. Within 3 hours, all of her clothes had been completely cut off, and some people even started slicing her skin. She was sexually assaulted various times and had rose thorns stuck in her abdomen. One person even held the gun to her head until someone else took it away. Afterwards, Abramovich said, "If you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you." Morbid Facts, Part 203. Born in 1661, Charles II of Spain was the result of 200 years of inbreeding that intended to strengthen the family line. He was breastfed until the age of 4 and never fully learned how to walk. As an adult, he was completely illiterate and could barely chew or speak due to his deformed jaw. He was so ugly and disfigured that his own wife was terrified of him. In 2010, a Canadian man rescued a newborn baby from a dumpster only to find out that he was the father. In isolation wards where patients die alone, nurses fill gloves with warm water to simulate the touch of their loved ones. They call it the hand of God. In 1990, British Airways Flight 5390 experienced a window failure in the cockpit, causing the captain to be sucked out. But the crew held on to him for 20 minutes and he miraculously survived despite some frostbite and a few fractures.